Welcome to our first McLaren fans podcast after the summer break. I'd love to have told you that we've been on actual holidays for 2 months and sat on a beach somewhere, but the real reality of it, we've all probably been sat behind a desk looking at a computer screen for 2 months without F1 for most of that time as well. Joining me today is Andy Romson. Say hello, Andy.
Hello.
We've got two avid McLaren fans on. We've got Simon, who's been on before. Hi, Simon.
Hi.
And a new guest, but an avid listener, Keith. Good to have you on,
Hi,
Keith.
guys. Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And what an impressive background you've got there.
It's a bit papaya, and just for other uses, I didn't use the O word there. It is very papaya. And the wife had no point in buying the paint. She was like, I am not getting involved in that paint color.
Yeah. Well, obviously Perry watches and listens to every episode to see if anyone else uses the O word when they really shouldn't. So there you go. Obviously, you will notice that there's no Sarah with us today. Don't worry, she's not been kicked off the podcast. It's unfortunately she's not very well, so she's once again can't join us. And one of the reasons that we've had a bit of a break in between is we've been hopefully wanting to get her back on, but unluckily, it's not happened. So now we're taking bets on who returns first. Sarah or Danny Ricciardo. So yeah, summer break without F1. What do you guys do without the F1? I've watched a bit of IndyCar. I've kind of potted around in the garden, that kind of thing. I even went to see some Formula E. So what about you guys? What's your sort of plans when the F1's not on over the summer?
Formula E is a good segue, Andy, because we have the Extreme E, we had the IndyCar. We haven't got any McLaren Shadow yet, but that is coming. But yeah, Formula E was amazing. That was grand down in London. We saw a bunch of people and that. But Extreme E's been grand as well. Getting behind Tanner and getting behind Emma has been brilliant. And Festival of Speed. Did anyone else go to Goodwood Festival of Speed? It's
a bit far for me, that one, I'm afraid.
Oh, it's a trek. It's as far south as you can go, pretty much. But
my helicopter doesn't go that far. Sorry.
Fair enough. So that was and recovery. We all watch the race and qualifying and practice, and it's a commitment. So I have the other half that has to have some of my attention for at least 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
And what about you guys? What about you, Keith?
So I'm going to stick with you guys. I was Extreme E. I didn't see some of you guys on the Saturday, but I did go on the Sunday and met up with a load of the Papaya family, which was fantastic. And again, I'm with Extreme E, with Emma and Tanner, and hopefully Emma is feeling an awful lot better. She didn't look too good when they showed the video of her being beaten up, and I know then Tamara had an issue as well. So, and I'm going to say, yeah, IndyCar as well. And, via Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days, chatting to Tom and talking to Tom about that, chipping in with the Sky IndyCar, finding out what was going on and trying to get some inside info, which we like to think, but we don't get it anyway. But it was a great time. And yes, like Andy's saying, had to give wifey a little bit of time so that she could talk to me about Charles Leclerc, but that's a whole different story.
I think that's another type of podcast and quite specialist.
That's a specialist one. That's a specialist one.
And what about you, Simon?
Yeah, I feel like I've let the side down now. I did in and out and followed it a bit, but I did take sort of 2 weeks. I took the break as it finished. We went off to Menorca and spent 2 weeks in the sun. And then I came back on the weekend of Zandvoort. So we sort of flew back following practices, got back in on the Saturday, watched qualifying, and then just sort of straight back into F1 really. But a 2 week sort of digital detox and time with the family was fantastic. It was great to do. So yeah.
Excellent. It sounds like we're all had a good time. I wonder if there's anybody out there that's done anything a bit interesting and wants to give us a shout on the socials and things like that. Yeah, summer break. One of the things that I would say that definitely coming out the other side of it, we've had a few races since then, haven't we? So we had Spa, and then we've had Zandvoort as well, and then Monza, and now Singapore. Was Spa before the break or after?
I think before the break.
It was before, wasn't it? And that confuses me because normally Spa's on my birthday weekend, which is definitely after the summer break, but they've moved it all around. And but what I would say is that we got them upgrades in Austria. We've had a few more put on since, and then we got a few more after that, and even this weekend we've had some for Singapore. And our upgrades are working. It's great.
I got to say that the correlation between what they're trying in the factory and what they're doing with sort of CFD and wind tunnel, and then coming to track. What's the good thing is, they're working. I think the worrying thing is they're underestimating that in the surface. So then we're getting more performance, which is great. But then you go, is it going to trip us up? But I'm not going to knock it. This rider performance at the minute, the curve of what we're on is amazing.
There's a lot of analysts out there that say that probably we're going to be the biggest challengers to Red Bull next season if we continue on this route. I'll take that every day. I'm kind of curious and Andy, maybe this is a good question for you. Are we starting to see the new wind tunnel making a difference here, or is it like another few months down the line, do you think?
We've not started using it yet, as far as I know. We're right about to start using it. We're still in Toyotas over in where is it? Austria, Toyota?
Cologne, I think, isn't it?
Cologne, yeah.
Cologne, that's it, yeah. Yeah, I think we're right about to start using it, which would actually be the big impact. And Zach was saying on Saturday or Sunday that the difference is flying stuff out, flying stuff back, getting people out, getting people back, and that's wasted time effectively. And now we have the new wind tunnel, which we're about to turn on. It's going to be huge. But I think one of the things I said as well was in the cost cap era, it's not about bringing 5 or 6 things in 5-6 different weekends. It's about packaging it all together and doing that one big dump. And it's cheaper to do that than it is to do lots of little ones. I think that's brilliant because we've seen 2 massive deliverables, and the packages. We can see a difference between Piastri this weekend and Lando this weekend. 19th and 4th was it on Friday? It wasn't even close. And that's not because Oscar's a bad driver, because it's a great driver, but the packages must have been insane for that.
Yeah. And obviously you got the other teams bringing them, but I think you say them coming in sort of like large sort of packages, not to put double entendres out there in the middle of the podcast again, but
oh, that one's tickled him. We've lost him for the next half
They've gone now.
Andy loves laughing about his large packages.
Yeah.
While you're giggling to large packages, I think what you say, Andy, is right. The consolidation of upgrades that we bought rather than a large package, consolidation altogether, and see how they work together. So Oscar got some of them, and you could see it wasn't quite probably interacting with what else we had on the car as expected or as intended. But then you see the other effect, like Aston Martin bought some upgrades where they got like the bow tie back on the rear end. So really small upgrades, but they seem to have a really negative impact. And this is what I mean, that correlation of it where it comes together and works, just seem to be nailing it. I mean, what sort of Zach and Andrea and the rest of the technical team are doing is really clicking.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your impression, Keith, on the?
Well, yeah, I'm absolutely with you guys. I love the fact that we're bringing these, and again with the cost caps, thinking about that. Once we do open our own wind tunnel, we're not wasting money on shipping people out, shipping equipment out. That's all going to have an impact. But taking into account Oscar's performance this weekend, he was making up ground even without all those upgrades. That car was definitely not slow, and that guy can drive beautifully, and he made up more places than Max did, if we're allowed to use the M word, but he was out there and he was really pushing that car to its limits without those upgrades. So we must be getting fantastic data feedback from the upgrades, as well as, not having the whole package, but seeing these cars and also Lando and Oscar working together. You can see that they're bouncing off one another and they're getting the most out of the car. They're obviously sharing a lot of information and data with each other, and it's just fantastic from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is going to argue, unless they are like the biggest, maybe sort of Liam Lawson fan or something like that, that Oscar is definitely rookie of the season. He's not driven like a rookie.
No.
Yeah, there's been a few times where there's been some mistakes, but overall his performances have been consistent enough.
Yeah.
To make Lando sweat a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Not even Danny Rick could do that. So,
Although he was, until he broke his thumb, he was doing really well on the few races he's had back. Yeah, give him credit for that. Hey, talking of ex-McLaren drivers, wasn't it wonderful to see a McLaren ex-McLaren podium this weekend?
It was. They're all gone through walking at some point.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely.
One thing I did notice over the summer, normally there's like it's silly season and stuff like that, and there's this driver might move here and something like that, but nothing seemed to really happen. Nobody retired, nobody quit, nobody said, "Oh, I'm leaving this team," which normally is the thing that happens, that you get like a knock-on effect from that or anything else like that. I guess the only thing you had was like, Helmut Marko's casual racism of Checo, which is absolutely ridiculous. And, the sooner that guy's not in the paddock, the better. And then as just a quick point on that, for then Red Bull to turn around and say, he's not a Red Bull employee. Get out of here. What are you playing at? So, yeah,
I actually think one of the journalists went up and showed him the YouGov page, and it showed Helmut as like the second on the YouGov page for Red Bull Racing. So talking to Christian and then going, what do you mean? You can see this on here. He's there. So
interesting.
Not a fan of him. Not a fan at all. Even before this recent thing. Having met him once, I was not a fan of him. Put it that way. Anyway, back to the silly season sort of thing. So obviously we've nailed down Lando and Oscar for next year, which is great. I think that's a grand move. I wouldn't be surprised if we offer them longer term contracts in the winter break, get them both on another 2 years.
Yeah.
I think it would be very sensible. I think they work well as driver partnership. It's I think it's still the youngest partnership that we've actually had, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, like youngest on the grid as well, isn't it?
Yeah. But it certainly doesn't feel like that case. Lando feels like he's been around forever, doesn't he? So
there are only 4 seats available.
And which one are we taking? Sorry.
Well, one of the 4 that's available officially is Fernando Alonso's partner at Aston Martin.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure that Stroll's seat is actually available.
Yeah, I don't know. To be fair, I don't think he's done anything to kind of, if his dad didn't own the team, I think he'd be out this year. Yeah.
Kind of get the feeling that Lawrence is there going, look, it's kind of like a parent would do and go, look, I bought an F1 team. You're going to drive it.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to be there anymore, but it's kind of a look, I've made this tea for you. You're going to eat it. It's
yeah. I think if they're starting to get a more competitive car and Alonso's showing that it is more competitive and a decent driver's hands, then I wouldn't be surprised if the trigger gets pulled at some point. But there you go. So let's have a bit of a chat about Singapore, just gone this weekend. I think we all know, everybody's going to have known the result by now and everything else like that. But I just want to, my first point, I want to just say how refreshing it is that Red Bull didn't win.
Do you know, we were sat in after the safety car and last 20 odd laps, we were sat in second, and we were waiting for Mercedes, who did great decision, great strategy. Give it the risk, throw the dice, and they could have done us. And we were sat watching him, and we were sat in second. I was like, honestly, in my heart, if we'd finished fourth because both Mercedes had overtaken us, I still think that would have been a great result. We wouldn't have had a podium, but it would have been a great result.
Mm-hmm.
But to finish second, having held off both Mercedes, thanks to our old friends Carlos, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We were on the edge of our seat for 20 laps, just watching the clock come down and then watching the milliseconds behind us. Gutted for George. He didn't deserve to hit a wall, but also we deserved second.
I think Lando sold him a right dummy on that one.
Really?
Yeah. Because Lando hit it like literally seconds before him.
Mm.
And I think that possibly George just followed him straight into the wall. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, P2, I'm never going to turn that down. And a P7, double points. Love it. Pushes us further up there. Are we going to catch Aston? I don't think so. I think they're a little bit too far ahead. They're going to have a real meltdown for us to get them, I think. But I think I would say fifth in the championship is pretty much ours if we continue this trajectory. It would be interesting to see if you took from Austria onwards where we would actually have sat. Maybe
there was a tweet going around today that said Lando Norris is the third highest point scorer since Austria.
Yeah.
And the only two above him are Red Bull.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I think we'd be doing all right, but, would we be sat there in second place or third place? I think Mercedes have looked strong since Austria as well. So, yeah. And the OKX livery, I thought that looked really good. Any of you guys, were you lucky enough to go to the MTC for the reveal? I know a few fans were taking along. I think it was, it was only a handful of them and stuff, but it was good to see, some fans getting invited along and, being involved in these sort of things. The more of that kind of thing that McLaren and their partners do, the better, I think.
Yeah.
So the livery itself, it was called the stealth livery, and a lot of black on there. And the thing that really stood out was if you looked at that car, all you saw was OKX. But they managed to hide a lot of the other sponsors. And the rear wing, the amount of time we got on the rear wing with the two OKX and the Web 3, it was they got their money's worth, I think, out of that livery.
Yeah. And they'll have paid for it, but I think this is a really good strategy by us for these sort of things. I would say that the Williams had a similar thing going on with the Gulf livery, and when I saw it in real life, it looked a bit of a mess, to be honest. And I love a Gulf livery, and put it on a Williams, put it on a McLaren, it should look amazing, but it looked a bit confused to me.
Yeah.
So there you go. So let's talk about quali. Keith, did you watch any of the quali? Did you get to see that?
Absolutely, yeah. I absolutely love the quali and watching, Lando. I mean, obviously, I'm going to come back to McLaren all the time, but watching some of those times and looking at that board, talk about sitting on the edge of your seat. I would like to say I was pacing, but being a wheelchair user, I wasn't. I was going up and down the carpet though, and I've got 2 grooves up and down the carpet. It was.
You have to change your tyres after that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't quite as quick as theirs at 2.1. But what I would say is, even quali, as far as I'm concerned, even quali had me on the edge of my seat watching it. It sort of set me up for a cracking Sunday. I was really looking forward to race day after quali. Yeah.
What about you, Simon?
Yeah, it was crack it again. You know, looking at the times, I think
Mm.
really unlucky with Oscar in Q1. Just the
Yeah.
timing of where that was. What was apparent though, I mean, they came around that last corner into the wake of Stroll's crash so quick, but reacted really fantastic to
Yeah,
save the
beautiful.
car and everything. It was
Yeah.
really good. So yeah, just a bit of timing, but Oscar's pace was out. I think he was going to gain, possibly get through to Q2. There's no doubt in Lando. I always take a bit from practices where bit pinch of salt because they run programs and you just got to let them run programs and not out for times. So whatever they were doing was working. And then when it gets down to quali, the times that Lando was putting in, you know, stealing purple sectors and was really up there. And you were just thinking, you know, if somebody just puts a wheel out, he's going to get it. You know, Lando was up there for potentially sort of P1. But it was still a fantastic job, you know, to put us in that position.
Yeah, I agree. I think that once the Red Bulls had gone out, you started to kind of think, oh, this is a bit different. This is a bit interesting.
Yeah.
You know, up until that point, I was always thinking, you know, have they been holding a little bit back? What's actually happening? Are they doing anything? You know, to kind of just then, and then all of a sudden, you know, Max would put it on pole, and we're back to where we started. But yeah, once the Red Bulls looked like they were definitely going out, I started to think this is going to be interesting. And I actually genuinely thought that we had a shot at pole. I really did. Just because without the Red Bulls there, you never know. And it just takes us, Lando or less likely Oscar because he didn't have the upgrades, but Lando to just put that perfect lap together, a bit like Lewis did a few years ago. And you would have been like kind of going, yeah, you know, he's got it. Wasn't quite there though.
It was back in the mix. Like you thought we could get a pole. I thought we were definitely going to get both cars into Q3, and we were in the mix again, which is lovely because the start of this season when we were not very good at all, just to tell us we'd be in the mix in Q3 with a possible, just a concept, an idea of pole, that was cool. Yeah, not lovely to see it again.
I have to go and listen to those dark days of the podcast back again and see what we actually said.
I bet we found something positive to talk about.
Yeah. I hope we didn't just write the season off and say that's it. We're not doing any more podcasts until we better.
Just on quali, I've got to make a confession on quali. When Liam Lawson put it in P10 or knocked Max Verstappen out of Q2 and the Perez was already out, I was literally jumping and hollering and hooting around my living room because I was so happy. It made my day. Absolutely. And I know he shouldn't wish bad fortune on anyone, but it was Max Verstappen, and I'm fed up with seeing him up there. So,
yeah, none of us want to see him, you know, kind of crash or anything like that. And we're not, you know, we're not. None of us hate him. We just want something to change it up a bit.
Different,
yeah. I feel confession has got to come on, Simon. I was with you, buddy. I was absolutely with you.
I think seeing, especially in the race, so we saw like the 4 different teams right at the front, all mixing it. Any of those 4 teams could have won.
Yeah.
I think if Red Bull weren't so dominant this year, and it's their fault for being so good, obviously, not our fault for not being as good. If they weren't so dominant this year, it would be an absolutely mega season because there's 4 teams right within hundredths of a second of each other, and it was so good for Red Bull to have an off weekend. Yeah, they've won everything else. You know, forget about it. They've won the championship. They're both of them. Fine, all yours. But this weekend where they weren't on there and we all were, I didn't even care Carlos won. I didn't even care that Ferrari won. I just loved seeing someone else win, there being a change. And Carlos is one of our own. He's fine.
Yeah, he'll be back one day.
Yeah, and I loved, he clearly, and you could see during the race, he clearly knew he was dragging Lando for rear gunner. He had defense.
I'm going to say that the best strategy call that Ferrari have had in years came from their driver.
Right, but so really early on, he was not going full whack because he was keeping the field compressed so they couldn't do an undercut.
Yeah.
Now, if that was a Ferrari tactic, they have pulled a blinder there because
Yeah, it
they are
was.
not renowned for being good at that.
No,
No.
no. I think if it had been Charles Leclerc, I think it would have been the opposite. I think he would have wanted a gap to Carlos, and Carlos, I think, is a very sensible racer. I think Charles races with with a bit of emotion, and I think Carlos is a little bit different in that, but certainly a bit more level-headed, I think. But yeah, it was a great race, and this the safety car and the pitting sort of kind of rolled the dice a little bit, really. And you kind of you do have to feel a little bit sorry for Charles Leclerc, because basically they just sacrificed him at that point for giving Carlos a shot at the win, but he had to do it. Otherwise, they were certainly going to just end up in giving Red Bull a bit of a chance. So
It was a great race, though. Like, you got to admit,
It was,
just
yeah.
just as a race.
and the last 15 laps made it for me.
I had my non-McLaren friends texting me about the race. Like, that's how good a race it was.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the absolute disaster that is the Silverstone?
We will. I just one last
Mm.
point to make, unless anyone's got anything else. Oscar Piastri made more places up than Max Verstappen in that race.
Yeah.
Boys of talent. The boys of talent.
Yep. Thanks to Nikki for that tweet. I said I was going to steal that for the podcast. So there you go. It's quite an interesting one. But yeah, let's. Silverstone tickets went on sale today. Andy, do you want to kick us off?
For the first time in decades, and I'm talking decades, me and the family, we are not going. We are not buying tickets. If I win a competition or whatever, I'll go. But we are not going, purely because it's got to the point where I cannot justify the rip-off cost of what a Silverstone ticket is anymore. We camp. We do the 4-day weekend. We take part in as much as we can there. And this year, for us to do a 4-day ticket, which they're charging you 100 quid more for a Thursday than you are for a 3-day ticket, you don't even get anything on a Thursday, but let's charge 100 quid for that. Our ticket price would have gone up £200 per person. So for 4 of us, that's 800 quid. And we're not even in like anything luxury. We're in Cops B. We sit in Cops B. We sit in a bang average grandstand, but brilliant view. Like you get a great view, but we're not in Beckett's, we're not in Maggots, we're not in like the Straight. And I just cannot justify the ticket would have got £200. It is an absolute mick. So I'm gutted, but we're not going.
Yeah, I think I'm so every now and then I'll go and do a weekend or do a quali and that, but I tended to like to do my Silverstone. It was slightly different to yours. I would always buy the Friday GA ticket, and I'd go because it's a chance for me to meet a lot of people that I talk to on Twitter in real life, have a bit of a chat with them, sometimes sit in a grandstand. I can remember years ago sitting with my friend Hope and Danny, just sat in store at 5 o'clock. The F1 had all finished. A lot of people had gone home, and it was like F2 practice or something, one of the tin tops or something like that. And we just sat, and it was beautiful sunshine, and we were really relaxed. Just sat there, just chatting about motor racing and stuff like that. And I'm gutted. I'm going to miss that, but I'm not the only one that's going to miss that. They're not going again. They used to go every year. I've seen lots of people on Twitter, whatever it's called these days, just saying the same thing, that this time it's just not feasible to go. And what I would say is that, I get it. They put the prices up. They're going to sell out. They're going to sell out the tickets for the race. It's going to happen, right? It just is. All the other races around the world have done that. It's going to happen. The bit that sticks in my throat is there's 2 bits. There's the dynamic pricing, right? So if you were at work today and the tickets went on sale this morning, and now you're looking at them now, the first time you can get on to the actual internet to look at them. You're paying £150 more on average for a ticket than you were at 9 o'clock this morning.
Jeez.
Don't forget, to get today's pricing, you have to be a £120 Silverstone Racing Club member as well.
Or you have to have done that as well.
Yeah,
Holy
to get the member pre-launch, you have to be a member. And then they're releasing normal tickets to normal people in a couple of days' time with dynamic pricing already started.
So you have to pay £120 to try and get the tickets £120 cheaper than what they might start in a couple of days' time.
Yeah.
Are they off their fucking head? I mean, let's be honest, right? The guy who's running Silverstone stood up after COVID, before the thing, and stood there and said, if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be here. And I was going, good on you. Good for you, right? We'll go and we'll support you. Do you know what? I wish I'd never given them the fucking money now, because it's just money grabbing now. And, take dynamic pricing out of it, put the prices at a normal rate, fine. That's all right. Hike them up because you've got demand. Don't charge people 120 quid to be a member for fuck all. Don't charge people £100 to go into the centre for nothing. Don't charge people another £100 for going into on a Thursday that used to be part of the thing. And like you say, there's nothing on. There's the Sky TV thing. You're paying £100 to be in a Sky TV audience for a live show. Rip off. Absolute rip off.
If you go Friday, just so like you, I looked at going just Friday just to see the car on track. To get a roving grandstand ticket, so you get really nice view, because they've reduced the GA. There are a lot of things you can't see now on GA. It's 150 quid just for Friday, plus 40 quid parking.
Yeah,
And
a couple of years ago, I paid 70 quid for that ticket.
Yeah, me and the wife would go on a Friday. This is ages ago, and yeah, it was 140, 150 quid for the pair of us. And parking wasn't that much, and it would be. Now it's kind of like I haven't even looked at the prices, but now for anything like that, it's hang on a minute, it's either a Grand Prix or a family holiday. And my son doesn't like F1, so you're talking we're going for three of us. It's a no-brainer. I can't justify it,
And like, I know, as Keith, forgive me here, I know I go and stand and I can see other people because I'm 6 foot plus tall.
Yeah.
And I have that luxury. I can go and stand on a wall or stand on a bin somewhere. Now, Keith, you're going to have a completely different perspective. What's it like for your side?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. They're not brilliant. It's not the best circuit in the world for disabled people, for access, for viewing access. We've got a couple of platforms, but you're sat in the sun. We've got, if it's sunny or if it's raining, you're soaking wet. There's no cover. You apply for disabled.
There's no cover.
No cover.
So you've got no choice. You're going to get wet.
No choice. You're going to get wet. Or you're going to get bleached and burnt to death. But the worst of it is, you can apply for what we call an assistance scheme, where you have to pay for 2 tickets. And if you need an assistant, they may refund you. But you've got to put that in an application within 5 days. If they turn that down, you've paid for 2 tickets, which means somebody that's pushing you around and allowing you to access that, if you don't meet the criteria, you've got to pay for both tickets. That person could be literally not an F1 person. They said, look, I'll make sure you get there. I'll push you. But you mustn't get me on my high horse here, because I'm not 6 foot, unfortunately, Andy, so I can't see everybody's heads. And that's the problem. They all stand up in front of us. Job done. We can't negotiate the site. There's the disabled toilets. Let's not go on. It would go on and on. I'm just going to say we're boycotting. We're not doing it anymore. We're finished.
Did you go to Formula E? Because I found that really easy to book my mum and dad are in mobility scooters, but you could book a disabled seat really easy with a carer.
Yep. And not only did they do that, Andy, but they met us. They knew how many disabled guests they had, which was fantastic. You did it all online. They met us. They escorted us. They gave us paddock passes so that we could get down, so that we could go a different exit, because we couldn't negotiate the steps over the barriers. I'm going to say that Formula E have hit the disabled access beautifully. And I did email them. I absolutely did. I emailed them afterwards and thanked them on behalf of a Papaya fan for allowing me to really enjoy the event. We had absolutely cracking vision from where we were, sitting literally across from the podium, start and finish line. It couldn't have been better. And they couldn't have offered any more assistance had they tried. It was fantastic. So I'm with you, Andy. They pulled it out the bag.
I fear that, that Silverstone might be one of the better ones out of you know, if you started going around the world, I think
Yeah.
you're going to find like somewhere like Monza would be impossible to
Yeah.
get around.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is something that F1 should be starting to take up with the tracks, starting to actually say, right, you know, if you're going to hold an F1 race, you've got to be able to provide X, Y, and Z for disabled and people who have, you know, can't exactly access what you've got already.
Yeah.
And it should be part of the contract for me. It's ridiculous that it's not. It's 2023.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake, get it
Right.
sorted. And you know, one question I've got for you, Keith: if you had to get a ticket for Silverstone now, would you be having to pay dynamic pricing as well?
Yep.
So there's no fixed. You would be paying the same as someone else, but then having to try and sort out sort of restrict disabled access after that as well.
You'd have to. You've got to send in documentation that supports you that says I do need a carer, because not everybody, and they say not everybody in a wheelchair needs a carer. Well, actually, quite a lot of us do. We need people to hold doors open and get us into places.
Yeah.
You know, so and not so you're right, Andy. We're going to fight back as well to try and get that a place available if we meet the criteria.
Should be something raised up to Formula One management. And when you look at like inclusivity and diversity, which they're all pushing, you know, it should be something that, like you say, Andy, it should be something that goes, right, you're going to hold an F1 race. You've got to have these criteria for all access users. And you've got to do this with, you know, it's got to be something that comes across rather than, oh, let's hold a race in Vegas for, you know, and so you can sell tickets at $1 million a pop.
And we've had, let's be honest, we've had disabled guys in the paddock. You know, Frank Williams. You know, you know, so it's not new. It's absolutely not new. And you know, just because you're in your own set of wheels, it doesn't mean that you're not an avid fan. But you do need, unlike Andy, you said 6 foot odd, stand up, you can still see. If everybody stands up, that's it. Your vision is gone, and you're trying to peer through people. So it is time, innit? It is time we kind of thought about everybody in the paddock. Everybody gets viewing somewhere.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
If a place like Formula E in the XL Centre can do it,
absolutely.
They're not that well funded. I'm sure F1 can do it.
And they could certainly teach Formula E, Andy could definitely teach Formula One how to make guests welcome and feel part of an event, because we left bouncing. We left on cloud 9 because we had a fantastic day and we could see everything we needed to see.
And I bet you'll go again next year.
You know I am.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to spend
It's
my
a simple
money.
fact, isn't it?
It is, Andy. I'm going to spend my money on Formula E than Formula One. Let's be totally honest, because I'm going to enjoy the race and get close to it.
Yeah.
Exactly what we said. Formula E will take our money every single day.
Yeah.
Right. And on that note, oh, go on. Last one.
I was going to say we've got 1 minute left.
Oh, no.
All right. I was just about to wrap up. Cheers for that, Andy.
My pleasure.
Mr. Producer.
Let's just say welcome to Sam Bird for Formula E actually next year, because Sam Bird, he'll be a great driver for us. And thank you, Renee. But yeah, that was it.
Yeah. And I think we probably need to have a podcast at some point on the IndyCar season. So we might have to do that soon. Have to sort that one out. But for this one, Keith, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Been a pleasure. Simon, once again, from a random Premier Inn somewhere in England, maybe. Regulars every time. Andy, cheers.
Yes,
and I'm hoping we'll be back in October sometime for another podcast, and we'll see and hear from you then.